Awesome. And while we get Dustin's webinar up, just thank you everyone for joining us today. We have some great content for our Cloud 101 webinar. We are going to get kicked off here in a minute, but first, just a couple of logistics. We will be utilizing the Q&A section for this session, so please feel free to submit any questions throughout our session, and we will answer them all at the end. Simultaneously, we have a couple of survey questions that will be posted, so please participate in those. We really appreciate the feedback. And this session will also be recorded, and we will be sure to get you a copy of that by tomorrow. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Dustin Milberg, our field CTO, who will be running today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and appreciate everybody joining. This is going to be the first in a series of webinars that we're going to be doing around not just cloud, but what it ultimately means for your organization to start thinking about cloud first and how to really traverse that journey. My name is Dustin Milberg. I am our field CTO here at InterVision. I've been with the organization about 2 years. Been working in the technology industry for about 30, and the last 15 of which I've really been focused heavily on helping organizations look at a fully integrated approach to engineering and thinking about the whole platform as part of how you not only design, develop, and deliver, but ongoing manage and improve that platform experience, whether it be things you're hosting internally for traditional IT workloads, the technology you would have regardless of the business that you're in, or more innovative engineering products that you bring to market that differentiate your organization from others. But regardless, let's take a look at what it really means to be cloud first and how to get organized around this journey. If we think about what is the cloud, a lot of organizations I've heard use this definition that it's really just somebody else's data center. And if that's the case, it's kind of like, what's the value of picking up and moving your workloads from one data center to another, especially if now you're going to be leasing or renting computer cycles as opposed to purchasing them, right? You lose what was some additional purchasing power, especially if you're on a traditional CapEx model. You can still capitalize cloud, but is it really worth doing at a 40% premium? Probably not. So instead, we need to look at what it is that the public cloud ultimately offers us beyond just moving your workloads somewhere else and getting rid of that lift and shift, rack and stack type of motion from your technology team. So let's take a look at that again. Ultimately, what the cloud really provides you with is an on-demand availability of computing resources, power, storage, network, and like, without having to manage it by the end user, right? So there's no data center for you to physically go into. But the public cloud also offers so much more than that. If you think about the major players, at least here in the US, your Amazons, your Googles, your Microsofts, who's better at looking at how you harness data and understanding the customer experience online better than those organizations? So they've developed, on top of delivering these on-demand computing resources out to the consumption model, they've also provided other types of canned product offerings or highly flexible product offerings, things like AI, ML, analytics, how you harness the power of data and really expand your use of data to optimize the way you and your organization bring your products and services to market. So that's something to really think about. Beyond just the computing resources, how do you now harness the power of the cloud to really turn data into meaningful information that helps give your organization a competitive advantage? So what's the value of the cloud, right? We can think about this in terms from CapEx to OpEx. Again, there are ways to make the cloud capitalizable, but once you start getting into the true consumption value, or the only pay for what you need, the LIMU-EMU model, now you're just leasing cycles on demand, and that becomes more of an OpEx. And so in order for organizations to fully get the value of that, it means you can't just pick up what was legacy, a full monolith, and be able to scale up and down based on usage patterns. We have to think about what are the additional abilities we get out of the cloud and how do we optimize our environment and our resources to consume them. Um, Yes, absolutely. You get out of rack and stack. It's interesting. I have a lot of companies ask me, well, what about my rack and stack engineers? And there are a lot of openings in organizations like Google and like Azure and like AWS. But truthfully, the more strategic play for organizations is to think about how do you take those skills that your very valuable employees have gained inside of racking and stacking infrastructure, and how do you transform that now into the consumption-based model that the public cloud provides? And really what that means is taking what was a rack and stack engineer and shifting them to now an operations engineer that understands how to provision workloads using a code base. So basically, you're taking your data center engineers, and you're transforming them into software engineers. This is up-leveling their careers, generally means better wage earning, also means a more competitive landscape, and also more interesting work to be done. And so think about this as you really start to harness the value of the cloud and make that shift. It's not just about moving from rack and stack, it's also about how you change your financial model and also about all the other abilities that you gain by moving to the public cloud. I highlighted some of those: data, intelligence, AI, ML, and we haven't even scratched the surface on things like Web 3.0. And that's going to come in a later series, but start to think about these types of models as you look at your public cloud consumption. So, how does the cloud enable your business to meet its objectives? One of the questions that I would like you to answer right now in the poll that just popped up is, which of the following best describes your organization? Are you A, an IT only organization managing the technology you have regardless of the business that you're in? An engineering only organization building products that others consume? Are you hybrid, or are you kind of like five guys in a coffee pot? Go ahead and take a moment here to submit your answers to this question, and we'll pause here until the poll expires in about 30 seconds. Great. All right. Well, Jessica, I'm not sure. Are we able to show the answers to that poll right now, or is that something we'll bring up at the end?
I think we can bring them up at the end. I'm not seeing a
Perfect.
way to easily share
All
them.
right, no problem. Well, we'll bring up the answers to those at the end, and kind of see where you and your organization fits. Excuse me. So, how does the cloud enable your organization to manage and meet its business objectives? Ultimately, everything is about business objectives, right? One of the things that I think about is better agility. Really, right now, I'd ask you all to raise your hand and show me how many of you are dealing with supply chain issues and being able to get technology resources, computing resources, storage, network, any piece of IT infrastructure into your environment with real speed and predictability, right? The supply chain has taught us that things are just going to take longer. So, the ability to be more agile and get the resources you need when you need them, the public cloud is superior at that, right? Matter of fact, if you want a computing environment stood up right now, if you have the right resources in place, you could optimally go spin that up and probably reproduce your production environment if done properly in a matter of hours. And now I know that that might sound like, whoa, how do I do that? And we'll get into that in a later episode of these webinars. But ultimately, this what the public cloud should do is enable your organization to move more quickly with predictability and be able to navigate technology needs on demand. Reducing costs. I talked before about, if it's just somebody else's data center, you're not going to save any money by picking up what you've got and now renting resources. But your ability to optimize the consumption of cloud is highly, highly incrementally increased if you look at how you change the way you consume. And so not all workloads are equal, but in general, we're able to help organizations look at what is that technology landscape and how can it be optimized so that you can get better cost and more predictability out of the cloud. That can come from everything from, does your workload need to run 24 by 7? Are there predictable spikes in the way that you consume? How do you lay out your data footprint and think about what type of content needs to be available immediately versus which can be in storage that might be in a nearline or even offline? So, different ways to architect and help you still meet all of your objectives, but do it while controlling cost. Improve security. If you've dipped your toe in the public cloud well at all, then you know that there is this concept of the shared responsibility model. And basically, what this means is that the public cloud providers are responsible for protecting the security of the cloud. So, all the physical security, all of the security around the way you consume it and the way you harness it. And then you, as a consumer, are responsible for the security in the cloud. And what that means is you not only have all the traditional security practices that you bring to bear that you would have in an on premise environment, but now you also have the additional tools and operations that the public cloud providers bring to bear to help you further improve your security posture and make your offerings that much more secure and as well as scalable. And so we can talk more about those in future episodes as well, but there is the ability to improve your security posture if done right. More capabilities. I highlighted things like AI and ML as one example. There are other examples like organizations that don't want to have to necessarily stand up their own publish and subscribe features, or maybe they want to look at ways to do DR as a service in the cloud, but they couldn't do that because they couldn't afford a secondary data center before. And now the cloud brings these types of capabilities with you and already has that built-in infrastructure component, so you don't have to go build it yourself. And then third or fourth or fifthly here, I should say, and probably most important, is shifting from tactical to strategic, right? I think that a lot of the public cloud providers have proven that you can actually leverage their ability to think about what those tactical requirements are so that you can free up your resources to go do more strategic initiatives. At InterVision, we offer services that scale everywhere from helping you get to the cloud with fidelity all the way through securing it and then ongoing management of it so that you can take your resources and focus them on your most strategic initiatives that have measurable value. So we're going to ask another polling question here. Where is your organization today on your cloud journey? Are you all on premise, zero cloud at all? Do you have a private cloud on premise that you built? Are your IT workloads in the cloud, or have you fully migrated to the cloud? Let's go ahead and give you another about 40 seconds here to answer this polling question, and then we'll move on. And I'll drink my coffee. We've got about 10 more seconds here. All right, well, that poll is just closed, and we will show you the answers to those at the latter half of the session. So what are some of the hurdles that we see organizations run up against when it comes to getting to the cloud? I can tell you with probably 99.9% accuracy, the number one barrier to success in getting to the cloud is people. They are also your number one success factor in getting to the cloud with fidelity. And so I often get asked, what kind of technology problems do you see most commonly? And it may sound tongue in cheek to say, gosh, I've yet to run into a technology problem. They're all people and process problems that weren't accounted for. And then the technology just amplified the problem. But honestly, that's not hyperbole. It's true. If you start focusing on your people and realize that you may have everything from digital natives who grew up doing coding, that this is kind of just second nature to them, or maybe they've even built applications before. And you go the complete opposite swath to you've got folks who are nearing retirement age, and they may see the cloud as a risk factor to their success. You've got to bring all those folks along for the journey. If you get a chance, go on up to the InterVision website. I did a podcast with Jeff Tunn about a year and a half ago on people, process, and technologies. It's a three-part series, and you can listen to it. And we go into depth and talk about what are some of the people challenges? How do you address them? How do you motivate people, especially in the face of change? And now, even more so in the face of the Great Resignation, how do you inspire people to want to stay, learn, and grow? And harnessing the power of the consumption model of the cloud really offers a lot of advantages, not only to improve your position in the market, improve your security posture, do it with fidelity, and improve your costs, but it also offers you a really competitive advantage to make your workplace more alluring. How do you attract and retain the best talent? Because that's ultimately what's going to give your organization the most competitive advantage. Process, absolutely key. Once you've got the right people on the bus, what seats do they sit in and how do they work together if you've ever read Good to Great? So now we have to think about what are the processes we need in order to harness the power of the cloud. For example, are you going to let people log into the console? I'd caution you against that. So how do you start doing everything as a code base so you have full auditability and traceability? How do you do that and build security into that framework? These are all things that you need to start thinking about and consider as you start building your framework for cloud consumption. And then what's the right technology? You have everything from that traditional technology that you've harnessed for years and bringing your products and services to market or your IT offerings to market. Now, what's changed? What can go to the cloud? Some things can go to the cloud with fidelity very easily, and others are going to be a lot heavier lift. Is it the time to refactor what you're doing before you move, or can you get there and then refactor later? What's the cost going to be of all this? So these are all things that you need to think about. And at InterVision, we've got what's called a migration readiness assessment. It helps take all the guesswork out of this. We work with you. It's a free offering to help you understand where your people, process, and technology are today and how you are well positioned or where you're at gap to help you decide what's the right framework for moving to the cloud and getting there with predictable outcomes. So, how are you going to measure KPI or how are you measure success? Before we get there, I want to know what your biggest concerns are in getting to the cloud. Select any of these that come to mind. I do a series of roundtables about how do you balance cost, quality, and security in the cloud. And I've seen this concept of skilled staff coming up more and more, but I'd love a way to figure out what stack ranking is, but what's top of mind for each of you in your organizations as you start thinking about your cloud journey? Go ahead and answer the poll question and we'll jump back in a moment. Got about 20 seconds left and enough time for me to have more coffee. About 10 seconds. All right, great. Well, we'll show some results here toward the end of the presentation. That's our last poll question. But I asked this question before we started the poll there. How will your organization measure success? And I think this is one of the areas, and this kind of fits into both the people and process bucket, right? If we're not measuring things, we can't see a growth trajectory. And the key is to have the right key performance indicators, right? It's not about transactions per second. Everybody who saw Office Space remembers the TPS report. That's not valuable in and of itself. What question does that actually answer for you? I think about the 5 whys and really getting to the root of what is driving either the change or the behaviors or at the core of your need to migrate. And so how are you going to measure success is really fundamental for you and your organization. So think about what are the right key performance indicators. I strongly urge organizations to think about 2 or 3. Don't go too broad and don't go too deep. And it's okay if you get those 2 or 3 questions wrong, that's all right. Make the shift, ask 2 or 3 new questions and start to measure it over time. And if you're doing KPIs right, they should force you to not only answer the question that you've asked, they might cause you to start asking and answering new questions. And that's a healthy transition. And that'll help you establish what the right baseline of KPIs are for you and your organization. Then, obviously, how do you tie those KPIs back to business outcomes? This is critical. And I often hear a lot of organizations talk about, oh, well, when we work with the business, technology organizations who separate themselves from the business, now the business is asking us to do X because of Y. And where I really encourage technology organizations to start thinking about is as an integral part of the business. And here's how I can prove that out for you. If you think you're not an integral part of the business, give your entire technology team 1 month off and see what happens to the business. I think that you'll start to find that you are a key part of the business, and really your ability to affect business outcomes is keenly involved in your success. So think about how you tie your KPIs to business outcomes, how your organization understands what the desired outcomes are, and how you're going to measure it, and then plan for it and iterate on it. Employee satisfaction, we've talked about this before, right? Nobody wants to, willingly go move things around that they don't like to do. But if you can find the way to understand what it is about how your employees are motivated, and then how do you align the people, process, and technology around that, you're going to have happier staff. You're going to build an environment, a culture where people want to work. You're going to attract and retain the best talent. And then how do you tie those back to revenue goals? One of the key value propositions of the consumption model is, now that we're consuming everything as a code base and leveraging, kind of web technologies for consumption, now we can tag our instances in the cloud. We can understand where our costs are going, how that affects our revenue, and how we can make changes to meaningfully impact revenue and see the cause and effect relationship between them. So start to think about these things as you start plotting out your cloud journey. How are we going to measure it? How does it tie to business outcomes? Are my employees satisfied along the journey? And how am I going to directly tie what I'm doing to the revenue of the company and improving the bottom line? So the cloud's not a destination. For any of you that follow me on LinkedIn, and I encourage you to do so, I wrote an article and I continue to iterate on this, because I pick up pearls by talking to each of you and all of our customers and our partners. Those organizations that think about the cloud as a destination, I think it's kind of like thinking about, growing up as being a destination. We're kind of never done growing up. And so we continue to learn. And I think about the cloud more as a journey. And by focusing on that journey, we may end up in different places, and that's okay. As long as we think about and tie it back to what we asked on the previous slide. What are we trying to accomplish? How close are we to accomplishing it? And what's the value of accomplishing it? So really follow me on LinkedIn. Take a look at that article that I wrote. The journey to the cloud is more important than the arrival. I think it will resonate with many of you. So my lessons learned and what I've really gained as part of really the last 15 years as an early adopter of public cloud, but even more so in the last 15 years in helping organizations start to think about new ways of adopting that technology landscape with fidelity to improve cost, quality, and security, fill the skills gap. Start with the people, then the process. And then the technology should ultimately take care of itself. Because if you've got smart people with the right process behind it, they're going to be able to help you find and identify the way to plug those technical holes. The shift of the consumption model. This is both good and bad, right? You can think about it a lot like renting a car, right? If you rent a car, it doesn't necessarily make sense if you're going to be driving it every single day for years on end. However, there's ways to drive down the cost of that. So you have to think about cost as part of the consumption model. You are now consuming everything as a code base. And how is that going to change your security posture? And then also, how does that affect the way that your customers experience the products and services that you bring to bear by leveraging the consumption model? So think about all three of those: cost, quality, and security as an integral part of what you measure and plan for in your cloud consumption model journey. And then this adoption of agile, the culture shift, the incremental approach, and as well as the subsequent architecture changes that go with it. Organizations that are able to break work down to its smallest digestible chunks and think about how they consume, optimize, iterate, and improve on those offerings in that agile approach generally recognize the most valuable return on the cloud consumption model. So I really encourage you to think about the cloud consumption model that way. people, process, and tools in that order, shift to the consumption model, and think about all the inputs and outputs that go with that. And then what does it mean to become agile? And how's that going to change the way your company is positioned? So, keys to success, we talked a lot about focusing on those business outcomes, but they have to be front and center. So, make them part of your KPIs. And by the way, if the business outcomes change as a result of what you learn through your cloud journey, that's okay too. Matter of fact, oftentimes the technology can and innovation can change the way your organization thinks about the products and services you bring to market. And that's healthy as long as you measure it and are able to tie it back to the things we talked about. Consult a critical objective friend. I think about moving to the cloud as one of those things that organizations should optimally only have to do one time, right? It's kind of like that old adage of when people say, gosh, it's always in the last place you look when you're trying to find something you've lost. Well, of course it is. If you keep looking after you found it, there's no point. So we think about getting to the cloud, that cloud migration, that should be a one-time journey. Is that something you want to have as your core competencies? Most organizations don't think so. So instead, they leverage a critical friend or a critical technology partner to help them get through this migration with fidelity, because organizations like ours, InterVision, we've got the success criteria, we've got the history of doing this and helping other organizations do it, understand what to do, what not to do. And additionally, because of our relationships with the major cloud providers, we can help you obtain funding to offset the costs of doing this yourself. So ring us up, reach out to me directly, and I can talk more with you about that, or reach out to your InterVision counterpart and they can tell you more about how we can help there. I've talked about avoiding the big bang, right? This picking up everything and moving it there. I can't tell you how many organizations that think about step one, get to the cloud, step two, profit. It doesn't work that way. Matter of fact, a lot of organizations that I work with have tried that big bang approach, and they generally get us involved somewhere where they're trying to bring workloads back. And you don't want to do that, because not only is that a cost risk, but it's also a reputation risk. Nobody wants to be the person that tried to get there and then failed, right? We don't remember the names of the people that tried to climb Everest. We remember the names of the people who reached the top. And you want to be one of those who gets there. So planning for it and having a partner that helps you along that journey is critical. And this kind of goes hand in glove with avoiding the big bang. Iterate for success. Think about how you break those workloads down. And at InterVision, this is a big part of what we do. And in our partnership with the major cloud providers, we're able to, like I said, tap into revenues or tap into funding streams that help you offset the costs so that you can get there with fidelity, get the most important workloads taken care of first, and then manage your ongoing business along the way. And then RGT stands for Run, Grow, Transform. Many organizations, if you break your workload up into a pie, the majority of that pie today is taken up by run. Why is grow and transform so small? Well, because if you're always focused on keeping the lights on and taking care of those things, those big rocks that are hanging out there that are kind of day-to-day annoying initiatives, it's very difficult to get to grow, and makes it even more difficult to focus on transformation and innovation. So thinking about how you balance out that scale so you can free up your resources to focus more on grow and even more on transformation and innovation is what's going to drive that competitive advantage for you and your organization. At InterVision, you can leverage things like our managed cloud services to help you get out of that run business so that your organization and your resources can go focus on those things that are strategically most important to you. So what else can the cloud do for me? We've kind of given you an overview. Yes, it is indeed somebody else's data center with data center resources, but think about all the additional tooling and experience that organizations like Amazon have, right? How many times have you gone to a website, not Amazon, but some other website, and been like, I was thinking about buying that exact product. How do they know that, right? The AI and the analytics and the ML that go into the cloud is just part of the tooling. That data and information that understands how your users perform, how they behave, what they're interested in, and how you draw them to your products and services is a massive competitive advantage. And if done right, can dramatically improve your positioning in the market and also help you improve your consumption model, drive down costs, and think about a more strategic consumption model adoption strategy. So the data analytics that go with that, absolutely critical. Innovating force majeure, like who knows what's next? Innovation begets innovation. And this is not only true for technology, but also the way people behave, the way they consume. Can you imagine 25 years ago having a phone in your pocket that's got more computing power than most mainframes did 25, 30 years ago? And yet here we are. And who knows what's next and where will we be 25 years from now, let alone 5 years from now? So we have to think about, you have X employees and they have X number of thoughts and they can help you transform. How do you leverage that force majeure? And what power does the cloud provide you as a safe place to do that innovation and drive change? Machine learning, artificial intelligence. Again, we talked about that a little bit. That predictive ability to understand where your customer and your organization are going is going to be critical. And I also think about the innovation cloud 3.0 types of technologies, right? Blockchain is not something that's brand new, but the way we're harnessing it now is an innovative step, a depth of innovation as opposed to a breadth of innovation. But that's going to yield other things. Look at what's going on in the metaverse. Look at how organizations are changing the way that they interface with their customers. And the cloud offers a whole new way to try those things out before you go and bring those things into your own environment, and whether or not you even need to. Like I said at the beginning, who's better at understanding innovation and change and customer behaviors than companies like Amazon and Microsoft? So think about that as part of when you consider why the cloud may be a value proposition to you. So what does the right partner look like? A proven record of success. At InterVision, we've been around for, gosh, we're going on 28 years now. We got our start really in the data center space and transformed over several years into more of a strategic solution provider. But through those humble beginnings that we had, we really got to understanding what our customers' workloads are and how they are unique and how they affect the way customers traditionally bought data center resources. Now we bring that same knowledge and experience as well as what we've gained through acquiring the right companies and thinking about how we can now take that same record of success and play that into the cloud space. It's not about the servers that it's running on or the network or even what the storage is. It's about what those workloads are. And by us understanding that, we can partner with you to help you provide the best cloud journey. Customer testimonials. We've got literally thousands of customers in all different markets. And, if you want to hear more about what it is that InterVision does and how we do it to help you improve your cloud journey, don't just take it from us. Hear what our customers have to say. And then I would say, think about the credentials and recognition. We're a premier partner in AWS, in Azure, we're a gold partner. And those things don't just happen by going and signing up for some sort of credential program. You not only have to maintain that level of credentialability, but you also have to continually reprove yourself and re-up those certifications. So think about, does the customer I work with have the right credentials and certifications to be able to do the work? And is it accredited by the public cloud providers? And then, is the portfolio innovative and growing, right? There's a lot of organizations out there that do one thing really, really well, but are they growing and expanding in an area that's meaningful? Certainly in InterVision, we could spread out in all sorts of different areas, but if you look at where we focused, it's on this portfolio of innovating and growing the way that you consume with fidelity and helping you balance out that cost, quality, and security model. And so everything that we do and everywhere that we grow and innovate is focused on that sole competency. And then, do we have a holistic platform approach? And when we talk about the platform, we talk about all 6 layers: infrastructure, application, data, security, policy, and the pipeline that governs it. So organizations that take that holistic approach to the platform are the ones that are going to be most well positioned to not only understand what those workloads are and how to provision them, but also how to secure them and turn that, what you gather, into actionable data that improves your organization's position. So what's next on your journey? What does your migration look like? Have you thought about that? Do you even have a checklist of questions and answers on how to get started? If not, give us a call. We're happy to spend time with you and go through that and understand where other organizations like yours have done it, where some of the hurdles are, and how you overcome those hurdles to become really successful. What are your potential and existing barriers to success? This is where having a strategic and honest friend or partner can help you. We get so close to the work at times, it's hard to see where we have blind spots. That's why they call them blind spots. So we, as a strategic partner, can help you not only build on where you're already strong, but help you supplement in those areas where you may be at gap. And those are often the biggest barriers to success. Like I said, people, process, and tech. We can generally take care of the technology much more easily, and filling in those other areas are key to your success. And then how will we cost justify the migration? Many organizations that go at this on their own don't understand all the funding models that we have to help offset those costs and then help you justify them. Contact us. They are actually quite interesting and can, in many cases, offset the majority of the costs that organizations go through in this migration scenario. And we'll talk about more of those as we engage with you. So learn more. Your class, sorry, this says June XX. Obviously this is the first in our series. We'll be releasing the next webinar date here very soon. But I also host a session of roundtables across the United States, and so contact your rep to find out about it. But these are in the current roundtable session is on balancing out cost, quality, and security in the cloud, and it's a roundtable of your peers. We bring in your technology leadership from all across different industries, and we really talk about this and the types of problems and how we help organizations solve it. This is not a pitch session. It's really for you to get birds of a feather, like-minded individuals to address some of the problems that you may be faced with and how others are solving them. Additionally, we're going to be rolling out additional roundtable series, everything from how you look up disaster recovery as a service, how are organizations handling things like ransomware protection as a service, how are you integrating security into your entire technology framework as a by design shift left approach. So more coming on that. So ask your rep or reach out to me and I'd be happy to tell you more about those opportunities. So I really want to thank all of you for attending. Please visit our website. We're continually updating and improving our quality. More information about our cloud offerings at intervision.com/cloud. I thank you all for joining. I'm going to ask our marketing team now if there are any questions in the chat that we want to make sure we address, and we can also look at potentially any poll questions that came up.
Yes, thank you, Dustin. I am not seeing any questions yet, so of the participants who are on, please feel free to submit any there. But I will go ahead and try to share our poll results. Dustin, do you see anything on your end that came up in doing that?
I did. I do see it. It looks like we can get, not everybody responded, but
Yeah.
on the first question here, it looks like the majority of you are in a hybrid IT type of environment, is what I'm seeing. Yep.
And I can
When
change
we
to
asked
number
which of the
2.
following best describes your environment, we had IT only, engineering only, hybrid, or five guys in a coffee pot. It's about a third on, well, maybe 25% IT only, 25% five guys in a coffee pot, and 50% hybrid IT. How about the next question?
Yes, let me do number 2. Here we are.
Okay, there we go. So when we asked about where's your organization, all on premise, private cloud, IT workloads, or fully in the cloud, what we got here was a 50-50 split between private on-premise cloud or IT workloads in the cloud. So interesting split here. How about our third question?
Okay, last one, and then this was the, of course, multiple.
Yep. Yeah, so this is what's keeping folks awake at night. Your biggest concerns about going to the cloud here. So it looks like about a third, or maybe 20%, 25, yeah, about 20, maybe 20% were in the quality space. About 25% were in the skilled staff space. And then of the remaining, it was 50-50 split between cost and security, but fairly well balanced out across that. So it sounds like all of those are keeping folks awake at night. So you're not alone if those are how you answered those questions. Great.
Awesome.
Anything else that is popping up in the?
I think that's it. It looks like you might be off the hook for Q&A. You did a great job and presented everything. So thank you for
Yeah, by
that.
all means, if you have other questions, feel free to reach out to me, dmilberg at intervision.com, DMILBERG at intervision.com. Happy to answer any questions that happen to pop up.
Awesome. Thanks, Dustin. And just a reminder to everyone too, we are recording this session and will of course get you a copy of that. But thank you for joining us today, and we hope you have a great remainder of your day.
Thank you.